Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel, and we have some historic news to cover today because as of now, breaking. Trump indicted by New York grand jury, first ex-president charged with crime. Now, of course, you know how they like to use the term ex for things. It would be former president. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, let me just go ahead and tell you right up front that an indictment does not mean guilt. This situation, this case has been mulled over since 2006. So now it's going to be a procedural thing, or this is now a procedural thing, where Donald Trump will now have to go to court and settle this once and for all. And it will be settled. However, this is what the Democrats wanted, not for the purposes of finding facts, not for the purposes of law, but for the purposes of trying to paint Donald Trump in a negative light, as they have been doing, as we have been covering here for years. This is a very despicable and absurd process of the system of Donald Trump in the hopes of embarrassing him enough, going after him enough to ensure that either he will drop out of the race for 2024 or to mar and to mangle his campaign as much as possible. It is absolutely despicable. And we already know that the GOP said that they will go after Alvin there in New York, Alvin Braggs, the attorney there, and bring in probably his entire staff, his entire law firm before them on the Hill. So this is going to become a sticky mess. So, as I said, this isn't really about the law. This isn't really about the facts of the case, because the facts of the case were already presented in 2006. They were already presented when Cohen was arrested. Now, this information isn't anything new. What this is the Democrats, the establishment uniparty, and Trump detractors trying to embarrass Donald Trump so badly that he'll either drop out of the race or give people the impression that he is not eligible to run in 2024. It's absolutely despicable. A grand jury in New York on Thursday indicted former President Trump on charges related to an illegal hush money payment in 2016 to adult film star Stormy Daniels, who alleged they had an affair according to multiple outlets. So essentially what they're alleging here is that President Trump has attorneys. He's got many attorneys. He pays these attorneys for their services. And so how is President Trump going to know the accountability of those payments to these law firms as legal fees, and how those legal companies or firms are going to use the money? So it wasn't like Donald Trump said, here's $100,000, pay this to Stormy Daniels. No, he was paying money to Cohen for legal fees. And they're trying to say that it was intentionally a payment for Stormy Daniels to hush. Now, as I've said before, there is a legal term for this when you make payments for these particular situations. So at the best, when they tried to indict Trump on this before, the Fed said, not going to happen. There's really no crime here. At best, it's a misdemeanor. But because we have a legal system, the system is being used. We already know the system is being weaponized by the Department of Justice. And I think this is going to have more of a negative impact on Democrats, the uniparty, and the legacy media than it's going to have on Donald Trump. But they didn't care. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at a very critical point in our country, where now we have witnessed something in our country that has never happened in the history of our country. A president being indicted. Now, as I said, I want to reemphasize, indictment does not mean guilt. Why it matters. Trump, who is running for president in 2024 and facing multiple criminal probes, not necessarily the framing that could be outlined as to what's happening here, is the first president in U.S. history, sitting or former, to face criminal charges. He's facing criminal charges, but he's not a criminal, as in other words, we have due process here in our country. And this is what the Democrats failed to explain. This is what the legacy media fails to explain, is due process. That just because someone's indicted does not mean guilt. The perception is that he's guilty of something and they have to find out. And that's the way the Democrats like to work. You're guilty of something until you're charged with it, which is the way the communists work, which is the way the socialists work. They don't require due process in these communist countries and socialist countries per se. In the United States, we have due process. The indictment over a payment during his first run for president is sure to ripple through this latest campaign. That was the purpose. That was the purpose, was to ripple through his campaign. So even in the framing of the media, they are doing their victory laps, spiking the football. This is very much like we saw with the article, The Shadow Campaign by Molly Ball, where these individuals all worked together, as she mentions, all worked together to ensure that Donald Trump was not elected. The charges come more than 4 years after Michael Cohen, the lawyer who handled the payments for Trump, or actually legal fees, because you see they're using this kind of language, the way they want to frame it, was convicted in 2018 and received a 3-year prison sentence. He has been a witness against the former president. Of course he has. The prospect of a Trump indictment was raised in early March after the district attorney's office invited Trump to testify before a grand jury. Axios reached out to an attorney for Trump for comment. I like how Axios and these agencies always like to inject themselves in something like this because they want to make sure their name is out there and know where this information is coming from. The big picture. Oh, so here we go. They're going to explain to us what the big picture is, even though I've just explained it to you. Trump, who frequently casts himself as a victim of overzealous investigators, well, that's because it's actually happening. He doesn't have to create that idea. It's happening, right? He's not generating this sort of thing. He's being forced into it. The media and others has repeatedly blasted the probe by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg on Truth Social. Well, of course they're going to go after him on Truth Social. They're going to. They're constantly going to be going after Donald Trump. And this is why I say, anytime you hear the Democrats, the legacy media, Trump detractors, or political figures, political pundits say something like, well, we feel that DeSantis will be much better a representative for the Republicans as president. That means that they already have something on DeSantis that they can use to control him. They can't control Donald Trump. This is the issue. When Donald Trump became president, they sat him down and said, Mr. President, this is the way things are run. And Trump said, no, that's not the way I'm going to run it. I'm going to run it this way. And because he bucked the system, because he went against the establishment uniparty's system, they were going to destroy this man. Donald Trump is not only the first president in the history of the United States to be indicted, he's the first person to be removed from social media, hushed and censored, despite the fact that he did not break any rules on those platforms. Trump also called for protest, which prompted law enforcement to prepare for large-scale demonstrations that did not materialize. No, they didn't. It might now. I don't know to the extent of this, but I'm going to say I think the Democrats just shot themselves in the foot. Protests take our nation back. He implored to supporters, echoing his calls that led to the January 6th issue, which they're trying to associate all these things. They're trying to make connections. They're trying to connect dots to make Trump out as some sort of villain, right? As some sort of individual who's involved in trying to rabble individuals to take down our country and to destroy our democracy, although we are a constitutional republic with democratically elected officials. So again, we're dealing with semantics in many of these situations. But in this particular situation, I have said and will maintain that this is for the purposes of making Donald Trump look as negative as possible, or to present as much negativity on Donald Trump as possible. Of course, we're seeing this now break across all of media. It is a Thursday, but nonetheless, it is a time that they chose, particularly now when we are dealing with the events that happened in Tennessee. There is a lot of things going on right now. They tried to put Joe Biden out there as well as Kamala Harris, and that's failing. The economy is continuing to suffer. The feds are still raising interest rates. They are doing everything they can to distract people from what is actually happening because the establishment does not want to be painted in a negative light like they're trying to do to Trump. They also know and worked so hard to ensure that he did not interfere with their plans to do what they want. And people also have to remember that many of these agencies, many of these businesses, many of these companies, many of the media also receive particular funding from the federal government in one capacity or another, and tax breaks and all these other things. So there's a level of control there for these agencies to comply with the feds, or else they'll be pursued very much like President Trump is pursued. Now, I'm making a very huge generalization here because some of these companies and businesses don't necessarily get tax breaks and other things. I'm just giving you an example of why they behave and cooperate so much with the federal government because, of course, they don't want to be pursued and they don't want to run into trouble. And, of course, now here on Twitter, it's exploding, you know, Republicans against Trumpism. And, of course, they're going to go after President Trump as much as possible. This is what happened earlier today in Tennessee, at the Tennessee Capitol. We finally got the effer, says John Anthony Castro. And you see, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't about law and order. This isn't about our laws. This isn't about our Constitution. This is about a group of people who have a genuine hate for another human being, and they will utilize their position to go after him under the auspice that they're doing it for the purposes of protecting the country, protecting the nation, protecting democracy, whatever sort of thing you want to inject into this. But it's absolutely absurd. This is going to come back and bite the Democrats in the rear end. I can absolutely guarantee you that this was a terrible mistake. Well, this is really to create a reaction, okay? This is to create a reaction because, of course, as I've just repeated, they want to paint Trump in a negative light as much as possible. And so we have here from MSNBC, Trump indicted. You know, Manhattan grand jury has voted to indict former President Donald Trump. Trump's attorneys have been notified that he has been indicted, okay? Again, it doesn't mean that he's guilty of anything. What it means is that these individuals have gone out of their way to go through a process, right? Hating on Trump since 1992, exhausted majority. Well, this is individual talking about that here. But I saw an interesting comment down here. I think it was from Dershowitz. So yeah, Alan Dershowitz on Trump indictment. They made a foolish decision which will cause the case to be thrown out, I think, on statute of limitation grounds, among other things. And that's pretty much what happened here in Georgia, too, the grand jury, when we saw that one particular woman who came out who was, you know, identified as a witch and was involved in Wicca and this sort of thing. And she was just preening and excited about thinking that she could take down President Trump. And so that kind of affected that grand jury and affected that as well, because this isn't about law, all right? This isn't about chasing down facts. I mean, think about this. This is a tabloid story of adults involved in some activity that was being taken care of by a fixer, or Cohen, what they call a fixer. And so Trump was paying the legal fees to kind of make this go away and for her to not make a big deal out of it, because in essence it was what would be something that people do a lot. I'm not encouraging or suggesting that an affair and these sorts of things are appropriate. I'm simply saying that they're taking tabloid stuff, turning it into something to simply smear Donald Trump. It's absolutely ridiculous. CNN reports historic breaking news. Former President Trump has been indicted by a Manhattan grand jury in connection with the hush money. See, they keep calling it hush money. It's a legal fee, and Cohen used the legal fee however he wanted to. That was up to Cohen how he was going to use the legal money. It wasn't up to Trump. People pay these things all the time. And, of course, here's a response from Donald Trump from 42 minutes ago, and then Trump indicted. And so there's going to be a lot of grandstanding. There's going to be a lot of spiking the football. There's going to be a lot of excitement from the Trump detractors and the Trump haters and all those that are trying to destroy him. And like I said, this is all going to be for the purposes of a reaction. This is all going to be for the purposes of damaging his campaign. But we have reached the level, ladies and gentlemen. We have reached a point, the pinnacle of what these individuals can do towards Donald Trump. This is what we're witnessing. They are willing to put their entire reputation, if you want to call it a reputation, on destroying Donald Trump. These are grown human beings participating in an activity that reminds me a lot of what children do when they're spurned or they're upset or angry, or divorcees, for example, who just want to destroy the other person's life because they're emotionally and psychologically traumatized by whatever it is they've experienced. And I have argued, and you guys know since I've been covering this on the channel, that since 2016, these individuals could not reconcile emotionally or psychologically. These children in grown adult human bodies could not accept the fact that Donald Trump was a duly elected president. And they proceeded for 2 years on a fabricated Russian collusion story. So they are not above pulling every string that they can, doing everything they possibly can to destroy this man. And we saw what happened. We saw the level of protection that Joe Biden was getting, because he is the complete design of what the establishment unit party was looking for. Someone they could manipulate, someone they could inject, someone they could put in there to do their bidding. and this is what we have come to in the United States of America, to a point where Democrats and Trump detractors are so willing to destroy the office of the United States, to embarrass the office of the United States by indicting a former president. I would love to hear your thoughts and ideas and comments down in the published section below. I encourage you guys to share this video wherever you can, and your support is always appreciated, as I am now going through the appeal process with YouTube now. My monetization was rejected, so I'm now doing an appeal. So all your guys' help is greatly appreciated, especially during this time right now. Now, I'm not saying I'm a target of the cancel culture or others. I am simply saying I can use everyone's help as much as possible. If you want to help me financially, below this video, I have various links to my Amazon. You guys can click on that if you're going to place orders or watch your shows on Prime, whatever you want to do to help out the channel. And then, of course, in the top right-hand corner of my banner of the channel, you can see a donation button if you guys are willing. But I totally understand what's going on. I totally understand what everyone is going through right now, so you can help support the channel. So nonetheless, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video. And, of course, appearing there on the screen, that would be the channel icon. You guys can click on to subscribe to the channel, as well as to select notifications. And I will see you guys potentially in the Friday vlog.